Alright, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about the ANK 4.1X. This is a kit tube DAC system setup type deal that you can purchase and then build yourself. This one is special in the sense that Justin from ampsandsound sent this out to me, and these have his own tweaks on it. Like, he added his own wiring the way he wanted to wire it, and he did some upgrades here and there. I don't know the full extent of his like upgrades and what have you, but I know that he has changed some things regarding the wiring and how it's more linear of a power supply, I think, or he changed the way that the power is pushed to the different components. And I think he might have done some mild upgrades to the capacitors, that kind of thing, but don't quote me on that. Neither ANK nor Justin is asking me to make this video or say anything regarding this. All thoughts and opinions are my own, and let's dive right into what makes this thing special. Alright, so build and aesthetic, pretty standard fare, stereophile type component. It's just a big box. It fits into a kind of stereo component setup, and that's mostly how I use this, is with my KEF setup. I also use it with my corn scholars real briefly, but I mostly just use it in this LS50 Meta setup. I also paired it with my ECP-T4 headphone amplifier and then some of my headphones on hand, which are mostly ZMFs, and I also did the HFA Dahlia a lot with it, and it was quite lovely for that. But we'll dive into that after build and aesthetic, which is pretty much done because it's just a big box. It's made out of metal. It's, you know, not the prettiest thing, not the ugliest thing. It's a component. It does its job, and hate it or love it, it's just a box. So dive right into sound. All right, so let's talk about sound. Sound is it's very unique. It's a tube DAC, so it has this, you know, tube factor to it, the tube magic, if you will. And the biggest takeaway that I got from sound was that it's just very natural. It has this very almost wash over you naturalness. Like, it wasn't like a slam to the face, or wasn't anything like that was overly done. There wasn't any one aspect of it that kind of like jumped out, other than the fact that it just sounded very natural, very realistic, and it had this nice warmth to the everything. Like, it added just that tube warmth, and it had the depth was one of my big takeaways I got from it, was like this kind of crazy depth and stage, and the imaging was just excellent. I was really impressed with that above all else, probably. So if there was a big standout, it was probably that, like just the amount of detail, depth, and imaging and stage that it had. I wouldn't quite call it like super holographic, and it wasn't the highest as far as like that height level kind of deal for sound signature as far as stage, but the depth and the kind of stage and imaging was really well done. I really liked the dynamics of it, and mind you, you also have to pair it with an amp and then the transducers, so like your speakers, the KEFs I have here, the LS50 Metas is what I mostly used it with, and I really like that. And this is a small space, it's not the best space for like a stereo setup, so take that into account. This isn't like a reference setup, this is just my setup and my take from what I was hearing. You know, even with the headphones I was using, with my ZMF Bocas to my ZMF. Actually, my favorite was obviously my atrium close and atrium opens. They just, that same factor really kicked in, was like that slight warmth, tube magic with that just depth and imaging and stage and like this real natural sound. It just was, I'm going to keep saying natural, and it's going to get tired, very tired, but, or tiresome or whatever, but it's, the overall signature was just very natural, and I really enjoyed it, and it felt right, and it felt really just a joy to listen to. So I would say at the end of the day, this thing is fantastic. It's one of the top DACs I've heard in all my listening time. It's a fantastic sounding DAC, and it added a nice little magic to all my different setups that I was listening with. That being said, it is a very expensive DAC. And the kit isn't so bad, but it's still pretty pricey. I think you can get the kit as low as like in the mid 2000s, and then to go to like this one and up, you can go, it pushes up into that 4,000 or 5,000 range. And then for something like what Justin did here with this one, where he did, you know, his own tweaks, he's building it for you, he would do all that stuff. I think that jumps drastically up into like that. I think he said something around like the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 range. Take that into account, and then if you were to try and purchase something with this, with the upgraded like transformers, I think like that, I'm sure that's gonna, you know, spike the price even higher. So something to be very aware of is that these are not cheap components. And then anytime you get into like the dedicated stereophile kind of components, you see the pricing start to just really take off. So take that into account. But yeah, as far as like just taking away the price and all that kind of stuff, just purely looking at it performance wise, it's fantastic. It's a very, very lovely, very engaging, very natural sounding DAC. And it really did kind of jump up that performance of my current setups that I have. I have a hollow Spring 3 Kitsune level 3, I believe. DAC, this is my main DAC for my KEF setup. I also have a TT2 cord and whatnot, and some other cheaper DACs here and there, some AKM ones and what have you. And so in comparison to those, I would say it's most similar to something like the Spring 3 and or even like the May from Hollow Audio. And then the TT2, it actually came really close to the TT2 as well as far as like that sound signature, as far as performance. But I think that the Tube Magic really just bumped this up for my personal preferences up to that just next level. Like it's just a fantastic sounding DAC. But yeah, so that's my take on the sound signature. My final thoughts are it's a very expensive piece of kit. It's made, I would say, in my opinion, mostly for stereo type stuff. So if you're not into stereophile stuff, it's not that you wouldn't get a benefit from it, because it did make my headphones sound fantastic. I just think it's a big component. It gets warm. It's summertime right now. Like I'm sweating like crazy in the small room. I have my fan turned off so I don't have the background noise, and it's hot in here. And then if you have the DAC on, it's going to push out that heat from the tubes, and it just adds that extra bit. But in wintertime, it'd be great, but it's something to be aware of. That being said, like it's, yeah, fantastic device. And if you have the means to hear it, I think Justin's going to try to have this at Can Jam SoCal. And with headphones, like I said, it sounds great. It's fantastic. It's just not necessarily a headphone component. Like I wouldn't necessarily put this on a desktop, that kind of thing. It's a big device. And it's made to be put into a stereo, like component rack kind of deal. From there, I mean, not much more to say. Like this thing's fantastic. It sounds like delicious. I don't know why, that must be hungry lunchtime. But yeah, it sounds fantastic. I really enjoyed the naturalness of it, the way it washed the sound over me, and like kind of like I felt like I was placed not quite in the back, but somewhere in the middle of like a venue, and it was just like the sound was like all around me, and I can have this really deep depth to it, and just the stage and imaging was just fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, with that, I think if you have a means to try it out, or if you have the chops to actually build one of these kits yourself, it's a hell of a deal, because it is an ANK DAC, tube DAC, that are ridiculously expensive. And if you can build it yourself, you can get it for a really smoking deal in comparison to what it costs pre-built, that kind of thing. So yeah, and or if you want to have the Justin do his thing and do his upgrades for it, I mean, it's definitely a cool thing. And you can see like I have my B-roll running and stuff where you can see I opened it up and you can see the insides where he does a fantastic job putting these things together. So yeah, with that, I think I'll let everybody have their morning, afternoon, and evening back, and enjoy, and I'll catch everybody on the next one.